think it's all on the same continuum. I mean, Ghita said, you know, I was a critic, I used to write it, I'm still a film critic, except now rather than writing, I film it. I wouldn't go as far as say programmers are critics, although there are many, and there's always been a very strong tradition of critics and programmers. I guess Mark Parenson and Meccano, but several others as well. There's always this kind of feeling that anything a bit esoteric or intellectual, you feel like you have to defend it a bit. And I still defend it, but in a really positive, enthusiastic way, that it is legitimate, because heck, there are people there who are interested. And I mean, maybe you're not going to get, you know, saying, you know, maybe you won't get 2,000 people to go see a Nathan Silver film as you will a Richard Linklater film, but you know, it's a start. It's not about numbers, it's that enthusiasm, and maybe it might influence people to go do something else.
Michelle was being humble earlier when she says that a programmer is not a critic. I think a programmer or curator is absolutely a critic, and I mean, the language you're using there is exactly what a critic wants to do. It's about advocacy and guidance and passion.
It would be very hard for anyone to carve out a career purely doing criticism and reviews, and it's about embracing all the different facets of, you know, film journalism, profile writing, and also the different mediums. So, you know, one of the strongest messages that's coming through is, you know, don't just be a writer, know how to do video reviews, know how to do podcasts, and let all these different elements of media inform your career, even if, you know, what's guiding you is film criticism.
The participants were surprised at the suggestion that that was an angle that they could take. Perhaps because they're coming into the program thinking of themselves as writers, but now the internet really allows different forms of criticism, different media, multimedia to be possible, and yet so much of the institution is still entrenched in text and reviewing, that it's people like Kevin Lee and Matt Zoller-Seitz and Brent Kite doing really adventurous stuff in video.
One thing that's very interesting this year, Danny mentioned the video criticism, is we actually have some feature films that also function as forms of film criticism. I'm thinking of Roma in Paris, which is a beautiful essay film that a former film critic has made, and it started off as an essay. He wanted to sort of write about the topology in Eric Romer's films, and it's like, well, why don't I just film this as an essay?
It's hard to be a good writer. You know, you may know a lot about cinema, you may have interesting things to say about cinema, but to be able to write about that intelligently, interesting prose, is a tremendous challenge. And I think there's a danger in, there's an excitement and a danger in contemporary sort of online media criticism of making a video essay or using images and not doing it well. Just like it's easier to get away with mediocre writing than it is to get away with like a mediocre video. And so as like the possibility for ambition has raised, also the sort of the craft required, or the visibility, the transparency of the craft required to express criticism is also much higher as well. You can't develop a critical sensibility in isolation. You can't develop it without some discipline and process. You know, whether that means seeing a lot of movies, whether that means reading a lot of criticism or film history or books that aren't about film, or whether it involves traveling, which is something Shane Danielson in the workshop today was really advocating, which was for critics to see the world, to experience things, to bring outside life into their reading and understanding of cinema. I think all those things go together, and to combine the sort of intangible thing that's your sensibility or voice, or you know, the sort of viewpoint or perspective you bring to film.
Philippa Hawker for The Age said at our first session on Tuesday, which is she's never sure what she quite thinks until she sits down to write, and I find my writing process is like that as well. And you know, that's why I read criticism as well. It sort of helps me nut through my own ideas, even if I don't necessarily agree with the writer's ideas. Yeah. And I think, you know, you mentioned before, you know, audiences who don't like to be coached through a film, the experience of a film at a festival. I mean, for me, that in a way, it's just another subtle form of that sort of hand-holding through a film. Is, you know, here's one reaction to a film. Do I agree with the audience's reaction? Yes or no? You know, it sort of, for me, just comes back to what we were saying at the beginning. Is, you know, every critic has their opinion. You've got your voice, It's how, you know, how do you arrive at your opinion? There's different pathways to that.